In the city of Agalo, there was a woman named Madame Fola. She wasn't an ordinary tailor. She was famous for creating the most amazing dresses anyone had ever seen. Her shop was small, but her talent was huge. People from all over the city and even nearby towns came to her shop. They all wanted her to make their dresses because no one else could do what she did. Madame Fola had a special way of working. She could make a dress in just 1 hour. Yes, 1 hour. Other tailors took weeks or even months to finish a single dress, but Madame Fola was so fast that it felt like magic. When you came to her shop, she would take your measurements quickly and ask you to come back in an hour. By the time you returned, your dress would be ready, looking like something out of a fairy tale. Her designs were rare and unique. Nobody else in the world made clothes like hers. Brides wanted her dresses for their weddings. Women preparing for parties couldn't wait to wear her gowns. Everyone wanted to feel special, and Madame Fola's dresses made them feel like royalty. But there was one strange rule in her shop. Nobody was allowed to try on their dress while in the shop. If you wanted to see if it fit, you had to wait until you got home. People thought the rule was odd, but they didn't care. Her dresses always fit perfectly, and no one ever had to return them. Even though Madame Fola's rule was strange, her shop was always full. People couldn't resist her magic needle and thread. But this rule was more important than anyone could have imagined. One day, a little girl named Ama came to Madame Fola's shop with her mother. Ama was curious about everything. As her mother told Madame Fola about the dress she wanted, Ama's eyes wandered around the shop. She noticed the colorful fabrics, shiny threads, and neatly arranged sewing tools. But something felt strange to Ama. Madame Fola was busy taking measurements, and Ama couldn't stop staring at her. She noticed how quickly Madame Fola's hands moved, almost as if they weren't hers. Ama tried to look closer but got distracted when Madame Fola suddenly said, "Come back in an hour. Your dress will be ready." Ama and her mother left the shop, but Ama's curiosity only grew. "How does Madame Fola make dresses so fast?" she asked her mother. "Does she have a machine that helps her?" But her mother just laughed. "It's her talent, Ama. She's the best tailor in the world." Ama wasn't convinced. She wanted to know the truth. The next day, she came back to the shop alone. She peeked through the window when no one was around. What she saw made her gasp. Madame Fola wasn't sewing the dresses by herself. In the corner of the shop, there was a tiny figure, no taller than a chair. It had glowing skin and long, thin fingers. It worked so fast that the fabric seemed to sew itself. Ama couldn't believe her eyes. Was it a magical creature? A spirit? She watched as the little helper finished a dress and disappeared into a box. Ama felt a mix of excitement and fear. Should she tell her mother? Or should she keep it a secret? Ama couldn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the glowing little helper working in Madame Fola's shop. Her heart was racing with questions. What is that creature? Is it a friend or something dangerous? Does Madame Fola know about it? The next morning, Ama decided she had to find out more. She walked to the shop and stood outside for a while, pretending to look at the flowers in front of the store. When Madame Fola wasn't looking, Ama quietly slipped inside and hid behind a rack of colorful fabrics. The shop was quiet, except for the sound of Madame Fola humming as she measured a new dress. Ama stayed very still, waiting for the tiny helper to appear again. She didn't have to wait long. As soon as Madame Fola stepped away to get a cup of tea, the box in the corner of the room started to glow. Slowly, the tiny creature emerged, carrying a needle and thread as big as itself. Ama watched in amazement as it worked. Its hands moved so quickly that the dress seemed to sew itself in minutes. She noticed the creature's face. It didn't look scary. In fact, it looked kind, with bright eyes that sparkled like stars. Ama couldn't resist anymore. She whispered softly, "Hello." The little helper froze. Its glowing skin dimmed a little, and it turned to Ama with a surprised expression. "Who are you?" it asked in a voice so soft it was like the rustling of leaves. "I'm Ama," she said, stepping out from her hiding spot. "I saw you yesterday. Who are you? Are you a spirit?" The creature tilted its head and smiled. "I'm Aden. I'm not a spirit, just a helper. I assist Madame Fola because she does good work and helps many people. But no one is supposed to see me." Ama's eyes widened. "Why not?" "Because humans don't always understand magic," Aden replied. "If they know about me, they might try to use my powers for the wrong reasons." Ama nodded slowly. She understood. But she couldn't help asking, "Do you like helping Madame Fola?" Aden smiled again. "Yes, I do. She treats me with respect and kindness. That's why I stay." Ama promised to keep Aden's secret. But deep inside, she knew this discovery would change everything. Ama couldn't stop thinking about Aden. Even though she had promised to keep the secret, her mind was full of wonder and curiosity. How did Aden get to Madame Fola's shop? Why did he choose to stay? Ama knew she needed answers. The next day, she returned to the shop, pretending to help Madame Fola sweep the floor. She watched the older woman closely, wondering if she knew about Aden's magical powers. Finally, Ama gathered her courage. "Madame Fola," she asked, "how do you make your dresses so beautiful? Everyone says there's something special about them." Madame Fola chuckled and adjusted her glasses. "It's all about hard work, my dear. But sometimes, we all need a little extra help." She gave Ama a knowing look, her eyes twinkling. Ama's heart skipped a beat. "Do you mean Aden?" she whispered. Madame Fola stopped sweeping and stared at Ama. For a moment, the shop was completely silent. Then, Madame Fola sighed and sat down on a wooden stool. "So, you've seen him," she said softly. Ama nodded, feeling nervous. "I didn't mean to, but he's amazing." "Why is he helping you?" Madame Fola leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. "A long time ago, I found Aden in the forest. He was lost and scared, and I took him in. In return, he promised to help me with my work. But there was one condition: I must never use his magic for selfish reasons. If I do, he will live forever." Ama's eyes widened. "So you help people, and he helps you?" Madame Fola smiled. "Exactly. It's a partnership built on trust. Aden is more than a helper, he's my friend." Ama felt a warm feeling in her chest. She admired Madame Fola even more now. But then, a thought crossed her mind. What if someone else finds out about Aden? What if they try to take him away? Madame Fola's face grew serious. "That's why we must keep his secret. People can be greedy when they see something magical. They might want to use him for the wrong reasons." Ama nodded, understanding the importance of protecting Aden. But deep down, she also wondered if there was more to the story. Why had Aden chosen to stay with Madame Fola for so long? And could Ama do something to help him too? That night, as Ama lay in bed, she made a decision. She would do whatever it took to keep Aden safe, just like Madame Fola had done. But she also felt that this was only the beginning of her journey with the magical little helper. Days turned into weeks, and Ama found herself visiting Madame Fola's shop more often. She wanted to learn everything she could about Aden and his magic. But something strange began to happen. Every time she visited the shop, she felt as if someone, or something, was watching her. One afternoon, as Amma helped sort fabrics, she heard a soft, eerie whisper. "Ama! Ama!" She froze, her hands clutching a roll of bright yellow cloth. "Madame Fola. Did you call me?" Madame Fola looked up from her sewing and shook her head. "No, child. I didn't say a word." Amma frowned. The voice didn't sound like Madame Fola's. It was soft, like the wind rustling through the trees. But it wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from inside the shop. Later that day, after Madame Fola had gone to the market, Amma decided to investigate. "Aden," she whispered, looking around the shop. "Is that you?" There was no reply, but Amma felt a sudden breeze, even though the windows were shut. The wind seemed to wrap around her, playful yet mysterious. Then, she saw it, the faint, glowing trail of golden dust on the floor. Amma followed the trail, her heart pounding with curiosity and fear. It led her to the back of the shop, where Madame Fola kept her old sewing machine. Amma had never noticed it before, but there was a tiny door carved into the wall behind the machine. The golden dust disappeared under the door. Should I open it? Amma asked herself. Her hands trembled as she reached for the handle. As soon as she touched the door, a soft voice spoke. "Not yet, Amma. You're not ready." Amma gasped and pulled her hand back. It was Aden's voice. She turned around, but the little creature was nowhere to be seen. "Aden. Where are you?" The golden dust shimmered faintly, forming words in the air. Some doors must remain closed until the right time. Amma felt a mix of disappointment and wonder. What was behind the door? Why wasn't she ready? When Madame Fola returned, Amma decided not to tell her about the tiny door. Something inside her said that this was a secret she needed to discover on her own. That night, as she lay in bed, the whispers returned. But this time, they weren't calling her name. They were saying something else, something that sent chills down her spine. "The forest is waking, the forest is watching." Amma didn't understand what it meant, but she knew one thing for sure: her life was about to change in ways she couldn't imagine. The whispers didn't stop. Every night, as Amma lay in bed, she would hear the same haunting words: "The forest is waking, the forest is watching." She tried to ignore them, but they stayed in her mind like a riddle she couldn't solve. The next morning, Amma went to Madame Fola's shop, determined to find answers. As she walked, her eyes kept wandering to the tiny door hidden behind the sewing machine. The golden dust trail was gone, but the door seemed to call to her, almost as if it were alive. "Amma," Madame Fola's voice startled her. "You've been staring at that sewing machine all morning. Are you feeling okay?" Amma hesitated but decided to tell her. "Madame Fola, there's a tiny door behind your sewing machine. Have you seen it before?" Madame Fola's face changed. Her cheerful smile faded, and her eyes grew serious. She walked over to the sewing machine and stared at the wall for a long moment. "You're not imagining things, Amma. That door has been here for as long as I can remember. But it's not an ordinary door. It's connected to something very old and very powerful." Amma's heart raced. "What's behind it? Why can't I open it?" Madame Fola sighed and sat down. "Behind that door lies the heart of the forest. It's a place of ancient magic, where spirits live and where secrets are kept. But it's not a place for everyone. Only those who are chosen by the forest can enter. If you're not ready, opening the door could be dangerous." Amma shivered. "But I feel like it's calling me. The whispers, the golden dust, they're all leading me to it." Madame Fola placed a hand on Amma's shoulder. "If the forest is calling you, it means you have a purpose. But you must be patient. The forest will tell you when the time is right." That evening, Amma decided to take a walk in the forest to clear her mind. The trees stood tall and quiet, their branches swaying gently in the wind. Ama felt a strange comfort among them, as if they were her friends. As she walked deeper into the woods, she heard the whispers again. This time, they were louder. Ama, follow the light. She looked around and saw a faint glow ahead, like a tiny star floating in the air. Without thinking, she followed it. The light led her to a clearing where a single tree stood in the center. Its trunk was wide, and its bark shimmered with golden patterns, almost like veins. Ama reached out to touch the tree, and the moment her hand brushed its surface, she felt a surge of warmth. Suddenly, she heard Aden's voice again. The door is just the beginning, Ama. The real journey starts here. Before Ama could ask what he meant, the golden patterns on the tree began to shift. They formed symbols and shapes she didn't recognize, but somehow, she understood their meaning. The forest is awake. The time has come. Ama's heart pounded. She knew she had to go back to the tiny door. Whatever lay behind it, she was ready to face it. But as she turned to leave the clearing, she saw something that made her freeze, the pair of glowing eyes watching her from the shadows. Ama, a deep, growling voice rumbled. You've entered our world. Now, you must prove you belong. Ama clenched her fists, fear and determination battling inside her. She didn't know what the voice meant, but she knew one thing: she couldn't turn back now. Her journey was only just beginning. Ama stood frozen, her heart thudding in her chest. The glowing eyes stared at her from the shadows, but they didn't move closer. They seemed to study her, as if weighing whether she was friend or foe. A deep, rumbling voice echoed from the darkness. Who dares to enter my realm? Ama swallowed hard but stepped forward, her voice steady despite her fear. I am Ama. I seek the lost stories of the forest to save my village. The glowing eyes blinked slowly, and then the deep voice spoke again, softer this time. The forest's secrets are not to be taken lightly. Many have tried, but none have returned. Ama's courage surged. I have to try. The future of my people depends on it. For a moment, there was silence. Then the eyes blinked once more and a low growl came from the depths of the forest. If you are truly worthy, you will face the trials ahead. Only then will you find the stories you seek. Ama nodded. I'm ready. The eyes faded into the dark, and the path before her lit up again, this time with a soft golden glow. She continued her journey, knowing she had passed the first test but wondering what the trials ahead would bring. As Ama walked deeper into the forest, she soon found herself at the edge of a large, shimmering lake. The water sparkled in the dim light, reflecting the moon's glow. In the center of the lake stood a stone pedestal, with an old, weathered book resting on it. Ama's heart skipped a beat. This must be the story she had been searching for. But the water around the pedestal looked deep and dangerous. Suddenly, a voice whispered through the wind. To claim the story, you must cross the lake. But beware of the waters, they are home to the serpent of silence. Ama's breath caught. The serpent of silence was a creature of legend, said to take away anyone's voice if they weren't careful. I must be silent, Ama whispered to herself, remembering the warning. With that, she took a deep breath and stepped into the lake. The water was cold and made her shiver, but she remained calm. As she moved, the water began to stir, and Ama felt the presence of the serpent. It slithered below the surface, its long, smooth body twisting around her. Ama kept her mouth shut tight, focusing on moving forward. When she reached the pedestal, she felt a strange peace settle over her. The serpent had not taken her voice. Instead, it allowed her to claim the book. Ama picked it up carefully, holding it close to her chest. I have passed the first trial, she whispered, relieved but still nervous about what was to come. Ama now stood at the foot of a tall, ancient tree, its roots stretching deep into the earth like giant arms. The air around it was thick with whispers. Voices from the past, telling stories of triumphs and failures, floated in the breeze. But none of the stories made sense to Amma. They were broken, like pieces of a puzzle. The wind suddenly changed direction, and the whispers grew louder, turning into a chorus of voices. Find the missing piece, the truth is hidden in silence. They said in unison. Amma knew what she had to do. She closed her eyes and let the wind's whispers wash over her. She focused, trying to understand the meaning behind the words. After a few moments, something clicked in her mind. She opened her eyes and saw that one of the tree's roots had begun to glow faintly. She reached down and pulled at it, revealing a hidden compartment beneath the earth. Inside the compartment was a glowing gem, shaped like a teardrop. Amma picked it up and felt a surge of power. She knew it was the missing piece to complete the story she was meant to find. The forest grew darker as Amma approached the final trial. She had the book and the gem, but something told her that the hardest challenge was still ahead. She came upon a tall mountain with a wide, deep ravine. A bridge made of vines and branches swayed dangerously in the wind, barely wide enough for one person to cross. At the other side of the ravine, she saw a tall figure standing with their back to her. Only the brave dare to cross, the figure said, not turning around. Amma stepped forward, feeling her heart race. She had come this far, there was no turning back now. She carefully placed one foot on the bridge, then the other, moving slowly across the swaying vines. Halfway across, the wind picked up, and the bridge shook beneath her feet. Amma's hands trembled, but she kept her focus. Keep moving, she whispered to herself. Finally, with a deep breath, she stepped onto solid ground on the other side. The figure turned to face her, revealing a wise old woman with a knowing smile. You have passed the trials, she said. You have proven your courage and wisdom. The stories of the forest are yours to keep. Amma bowed in gratitude, holding the book and the gem close to her heart. She had done it. She had found the lost stories, and now she could save her village. Amma stood at the edge of the forest, the first rays of dawn breaking through the trees. She felt a deep sense of accomplishment. She had completed her journey and returned home with the knowledge she needed. As she walked back to her village, she noticed how the trees seemed to whisper, as if acknowledging her success. The people of the village gathered around her, eager to hear her story. Amma shared the tales of the trials, the creatures, and the wisdom she had gained. But most importantly, she shared the lost stories of the forest, stories of hope, courage, and the power of community. With the knowledge she had gained, Amma was able to lead her village into a new era of prosperity. The ancient magic of the forest had not only saved them but had also taught them to work together, to care for each other, and to never give up, no matter how difficult the journey. And so, the stories of the forest lived on, passed down through generations, thanks to the bravery of a young girl named Amma.